Today I'm starting with the worst team in the country and adding one superstar every year until we win a championship. I don't get to pick whoever I want though. I'll have to spin from this wheel of 134 teams and pick a player from the school that it lands on. Either way, we're going to go until UMass wins it all, but if it takes more than 25 years, I'll be giving away a copy of College Football 26 to a random commenter, so let me know down below how long you think it'll take. For this first season, I don't get to add anybody to the roster, and as you can see, no one's above an 80 overall. We are not working with anything fun here. Even our quarterback room is a bunch of guys that just aren't going to do much. The first position I'd love to fill with a superstar is quarterback, so we don't have to lean on Ryan Janowski just because these accuracy stats are awful. There's a lot of different needs that we're going to have to fill though. At halfback, we only have 86 speed there. Most of these receivers aren't going to be able to do much, and if I show you the linebacking core, you're going to realize that this defense is going to have a hard time getting a stop. I mean, you all can see the overall. This team is going to struggle, especially when the schedule that we're going to be facing this season looks something like this with teams like Texas on it. But the goal is to add one superstar every year until we can win that championship. And I'm not going to have much control over this team. I can only hop into one regular season game every year. What I'm learning is I probably should have done that against an FCS school since they just beat us. And I think we all know that we're not going to win a championship in this first year, but I want to see how we do against a top 5 team. I have no idea why one of our biggest rivals, Boston College, is even ranked this high in the first place, but I've been able to figure it out pretty quickly. We haven't stopped them one time in this matchup. Maybe the first superstar I should add to this roster should be a defensive player, and that decision's really just going to depend on whatever team the wheel lands on. I'm sure it's not much of a surprise, but we finished this first season 0-12 with some notable losses like 80-7 against Notre Dame, 77-0 against Liberty, and Ryan Jankowski threw 28 interceptions to just 11 touchdowns. I still think quarterback should be the first position that we look to replace, though nobody had a good year. It is time for the wheel to decide our fate though. What team are we going to be picking a superstar from first? It's going to be Purdue. Do they even have superstars there? I guess every so often a player like Rondale Moore comes through who was super fun to watch. Looking at their current roster though, we're going to have to choose between either a center or a free safety, so this isn't going to help our offense much even if we did get this center. Personally, I think we should just go for helping our defense and pick up Dylan Thieneman first. He doesn't have the fastest speed in the world, but 90 is going to be far better than what we have on UMass. After offering him an incredible NIL deal, we were able to convince him to join the worst team in the country. It's our first addition to them, and he has brought our team overall up to a 66, so now we're on the same level of FCS Southeast. I hope that we can beat them this season. Once again, we simulated it, and this time we gave up even more points, 49. I think you all know how the rest of this year is going to go. There's no purpose for me to hop into any of these matchups, so I just want to sim to the end of the season and add on another player. Well, we have gone 0-12 again, but there isn't a loss as bad as what we dealt with last season, so adding on to our defense clearly made a difference. We didn't give up 80 points in a matchup. We also saw Ryan Jankowski throw for a lot less interceptions. 8 less interceptions is a little bit of a difference. 2.6 yards per carry is rough though, and here's a receiver having a good year. It's time for us to get back to the wheel, and there's something I want to do. Anytime we land on a team, I want to take them off of the wheel, so we can never land on Purdue again, but there's also a higher chance that we land on a small school now, like Louisiana Tech. I know that I could think of over 100 other programs I wish it would have landed on, but now we have to choose between an 83 overall corner and an 87 overall guard. I feel like it's pretty obvious what I'm going to go with. Yes, Cedric Woods would help out our defense, but we already have picked up one defensive back, and it's not like he's got any standout stats like a 96 speed or something that could be fun as a kick returner. So while we're stuck picking from a smaller school, we might as well build up our offensive line because Burt Hale can still be a good player for UMass. I was definitely hoping this was the season we picked up a quarterback, but if Burt Hale takes our offense from a 66 to a 69, that is a solid addition. And he's also almost 350 pounds. He's going to be a hard dude to get around. Do we think that addition is enough for us to take down the Pandas though? I'm not sure. I think it's worth finding out. At least we're not going to get destroyed in this game like we did against Boston College. It can't get that out of hand. And honestly, I've just been sick of seeing us go 0-12. It's nice that we can run the ball. Number 12 was also our best receiver last year, so we're going to try to laser it to him, where instead it's picked off by the Pandas. And I'm going to try to get this gap shot, shoot for a safety. Instead though, they're picking up a huge run, and they're even jumping over our first tackle. At the end of the game, I tried my very best to pull off the comeback, but it just wasn't happening. And it should be pretty self-explanatory. If we're not taking down an FCS school, we're not going to win a game this season. So for the third year in a row, we have finished 0-12. The losses aren't getting as bad though. Trust me, I'm paying attention to it, along with stats like how many points per game that we're scoring. We are currently doing half of what the second worst team in the country, San Jose State's, doing. And you might think that we're giving up a ton of points too, but Vanderbilt was a close second. I feel like those metrics are going to tell us us more about how we're improving rather than looking at some of the player stats. Like Ryan Jankowski, he's going to throw for more interceptions this year than last year. And that's with a better offensive line. Now, we did average a little bit better yards per carry. I still hate to see 3. It's nothing pretty. We didn't get as many receiving yards. And if you're ever wondering about defensive stats, if having that 90 overall means he's going to have the best stats, that's just not going to be the case because teams are probably going to try to avoid him on the field instead of targeting him. That means a lot less tackles, and with Louisiana Tech off of the wheel, I like our odds of landing on a school like Notre Dame because they're going to have some beasts. Superstar in the title is no longer clickbait. We're actually choosing between them, and our best 2 options are defensive backs. Our top 4 options are all on the defensive side of the ball, but we could always go after someone like Jeremiah Love too. I wish when I got him over to UMass, he would come with these abilities because the abilities make him even better, but he has stuff like 94 speed, 96 excel. He's going to be fast. And I have to even consider picking up Riley Leonard. I know he's an 88 overall, and we could probably find better, but he is the normal type of quarterback build that I would go after. He's going to have good accuracy for us, and he also comes with 86 speed. I've been saying I want a quarterback for so long, but there's a lot of other quarterback options that are higher overalls that we could get in the future. It's going to be the same thing at the running back position, so what we might actually do is go over to corner and pick the second best corner in this game. I'm even surprised by the decision to pick up someone else on our defense, but Benjamin Morrison is somebody that we will never be able to get a chance at getting again. 96 zone coverage. And I feel fine choosing him over Xavier Watts because Xavier Watts has 87 speed, plus we already have a free safety. Now that we have Morrison over on the Minutemen, it's going to be interesting to see the impact he can make on our defense. And we're only 3 superstars deep, but we've been able to take our overall up from a 65 to a 68 in a few years. I would like to think that this could be a season where the FCS school goes down for the first time, but we didn't add anybody to our offense. So I just simulated the game where we came out on top 19-14. Our defense took a huge step forward just by adding on 1 corner. I'm not stupid though. I know this level of success is not going to last, so we are just going to sim against Boston College. And that's where we've seen our first offensive player of the week out of Dallas Elliott. It is also where we're going to pick up our first loss of the season though, losing 50-27. And what I'm wondering is if we have what it takes to go into Sam Houston, a newer FBS program, and take them down. If we can start consistently beating the FCS school, the Pandas, then Sam Houston's the next team I'm going to want to win against. But here's the thing, although this game has been pretty competitive, when we've been held to so many 3-and-outs, it forces us to punt it back to them soon. And our defense can only stop them so many times, so we're going to have to pull off a comeback. It'd be nice if we could get our first one of this rebuild, though the inaccurate pass is going to go straight into their hands. This is how we're going to fall. And maybe I should have done it differently. If we had Riley Leonard, we would have scored more than 22 points, but we also probably would have given up more than 27. Looking at how the rest of the season went, we did give up 65 points to Notre Dame using one of their former players, and there were a lot of bad losses. But one of the more interesting takeaways I have looking at our player season stats is Trace Pullen averaged 3.4 yards per carry. It's the most that we've seen out of a running back so far. And our offense got a lot better. We scored almost 15 points per game, but the weird thing is with making our defense better, we actually gave up more points. That has left me extremely confused. Going back to the wheel though, this time it's going to land on Auburn, so that's another good landing for us. An SEC program is going to have good players to pick from, even if they didn't have the best of seasons, and this is why I didn't go with a running back whenever we could have gotten Jeremiah Love, because Jarquez Hunter is the best player on the Tigers roster. He isn't as fast on this game, but I don't care. He's going to be a 91 overall, and he is going to be exactly what we need at the running back position. And I will say, it does stink that he's not going to come with any of the abilities that he had over at Auburn. But just the fact that we've been able to add to our offense, this is all that we needed. We now have a 91 overall running back. That addition didn't really change our team overall, but I'm excited to see how we do against the Pandas. And establish that for every season from here on out, we're going to be the dominant team and not lose this much. You have to think, there are a lot of humps that we're going to have to overcome in this rebuild. We have a lot of hard teams on our schedule, like Texas and Notre Dame, so if we can consistently beat programs like this, it's nice to know. The addition of our 4 superstars hasn't made us that good so far though. As you can see, we're struggling. We have barely been able to get in front of FCS Southeast, and on 4th down, we're going to come to the ball, so that's going to seal it. They could still technically get it back, but if Jarquez Hunter picks up the first down, that will end it. He's going to get that, plus a little bit more as he's in the end zone. Once we can surround him with a better offensive line, some receivers, and of course, a QB, I think we're going to start seeing some way better years out of UMass. As for this season though, our next game is always going to be against Boston College on the road, so this is probably where our success ends. And this might be the worst that we've lost to them 56-7. That was not indicative, though, of how the rest of our year would go, because we beat Sam Houston, we beat Army, and we finished this season 3-9. We're just gonna ignore that 69-0 loss to Temple. Is there any situation where Temple should be beating us like this? Absolutely not, but we'll take a look at our offense where Ryan threw 2 interceptions and Jarquez Hunter could barely get anything going. I think the playbook that we're currently in is a pass-heavy one, so it might be best if we go over to a run-heavy one. Jarquez Hunter averaged almost 5 yards per carry, and that's extremely impressive. I also think we haven't mentioned Sam Starch enough, because he is always on top of our receiving yards, even with his stats being mid and him being a 71. If he was like our 3rd or 4th receiver for the remainder of this video, it might not be the worst thing in the world. We've gotten Vanderbilt. And I know what you're thinking. You gotta go get Diego Pavia, but I'm not sure that's the right decision. If there's any quarterback I'd want on the Commodores, it's Nate Johnson for his 95 speed. It'd be fun to run around with him, but they did bump up Pavia to an 87 with their last roster update, so I honestly thought he was sitting around like an 83 and it wasn't gonna be worth it to get him. Looking at these stats, that would be good enough to win a championship. That is for sure. And to add on to the reasons to choose him, he is a top 3 player on the Vanderbilt roster, but should we go after a tight end? Because this is someone, Eli Stowers, that we could even have at receiver. I think there's going to be a lot of teams in the future that we can get a great quarterback out of. I'm not sure about a tight end, though. He comes in with 88 speed, and like I said, we pick up a second tight end, it's okay. He could just play receiver for us with no issues, while if we get Diego Pavia and then I choose a better quarterback, he's just going to be sitting on the bench. It's like every season, I'm talking about wanting a quarterback, but I've now passed up on 2 great options just because I think guys like this could really fill our team for the length of the whole rebuild. I should have looked, but I don't think there's going to be many receiving tight ends better than him in this game, so I feel like that's a great pickup, even if our team overall is still a 68. I figured we'd be safe simming against the Pandas, and we were, but we only scored 14 points. And I've been eyeing this rivalry against Boston College for when we got a better offense. By now, we've been able to add 3 players to it, but we still don't have a QB. But I'm not sure how much that's going to matter. You can even see that Stowers is being used as a slot receiver more than a tight end, and that's because I don't really want him blocking on the line. I figured that our other guy was better at that, so we have 2 tight ends on the field at all times. If our defense can hold it down, we don't need to score that much. And that is how we have been able to make it to the end of this game in a position where all we have to do is get 1 more stop versus them. Morrison was obviously hitting hard on that side of the field on that play. We're going to get the interception with Thieneman, and the 2 defensive stars have come up huge, so we beat Boston College for the first time. I only have 25 years to win a national championship, and with some of the players that we're adding, I feel like we're getting closer. But this is the first real result that makes me feel like it's going to be possible. For reference, Fomv, the guy I got the idea from, he spent 62 years in Madden before he was able to win a Super Bowl doing this. And for me to set the bar at just 25 years, it felt pretty low. Just when I was thinking that we were going to continue to cruise to success throughout the year, Sam Houston beat us. And if we're going to have to face number 7 Indiana after that, I think it's time that we just go to the end of the season. I knew there was no shot we'd make the playoffs, but the fact that we've regressed to 2-10 after going 3-9 last year is disappointing to see. At least Temple didn't score a bunch of points on us. We were able to keep it a lot closer, and if you look at who's given up the most points this season, we're not even inside the top 10. Maybe we're inside the top 20, but this is a huge improvement. The same goes for points per game. We scored more points than Vanderbilt, Army, Memphis, Duke, and Wyoming. And so even though we went 2-10, maybe next season that turns into a 4-8, a 5-7. We're getting a lot less interceptions out of our quarterback now that he has somebody to throw to. We have our first 1,000-yard rusher averaging 6.3 yards per carry. And I was wondering if Eli Stowers would be our number 1 receiver, but he ended up being our number 3. It's becoming pretty clear to me that with each player that we add, we're taking some huge steps forward. I would have loved to land on South Carolina, but instead we got Southern Miss, another one of the worst teams from this past season, and there is literally nobody on this roster that I'd be excited about. I'm not going to get their quarterback, Tate Rodemaker, with his 69 speed. And another thing I was considering was we'll just pick up one of their offensive linemen, boost up our offensive line a little bit, but none of these players are any good. What I've decided to settle for is either their defensive tackle or a corner, and I think I'm going to skip out on improving our defensive line for now. Because although Michael Caraway Jr. isn't anything great, I think he could be a solid cornerback 3 for us if we ended up being stuck with him the rest of this video. With him added to our cornerback room, I'm feeling a lot better about that position on our team. And with this being the start to season number 7, I'm very curious if we can win our first 3 games. However, the complete opposite happened. We lost to the Pandas. We lost to Boston College. Sam Houston beat us by 27 points, so we are taking a major step backwards. And I'm not sure why this team is struggling so much, but I'm curious if that would continue against Indiana. In my mind, surely losing those first few games has to be a fluke. But it wasn't. We barely moved the ball against them. We've only been able to score 10 points, so anything we do in the final minute doesn't matter. I'm just shocked by the fact that we played this poorly. And it's going to be a long time before we can start having the conversation about potentially getting into the playoffs. I don't think adding a quarterback, no matter how good he is going to change anything until we build a full roster of great players. You saw how the season went. 100%. Our only win was against UConn, and we are scoring the least amount of points in the country again. We also happen to have the worst defense in the country, so it turns out adding an 80 overall corner just hurt us. And that is so confusing to me. We better not land on another small school. We can't have it happen in back-to-back years. And I know what you're thinking. There's a Patrick Mahomes clone that we could take at quarterback, but we're not going to pick up Dylan Raiola. If this was him 3 to 4 years down the line, I'd be very interested, but since he's just a freshman coming in at an 81, I don't really want that on our team. And instead, what we're going to have to pick between is an 88 overall corner, another cornerback on this roster, or an 87 defensive tackle, and I think we need to start improving our defensive line. I would have preferred we could get a higher overall than this at that position, but an 87 isn't bad. It's going to be an upgrade for us. And he might not be a 90 overall plus, so he's in the bottom half of players that we've added to this roster so far, but at least he's not an 80. I also almost forgot to take a look at season stats for what we dealt with last season. I didn't look at our player stats individually. Jarquez Hunter rushed for a lot less yards, but it makes sense because we didn't win as many games. And I think it's going to be important for us to try out another playbook, so we're going to go over to the run and shoot where he should get more carries. Another thing I didn't really consider is we might have dealt with injuries last year, so maybe that's something that caused us to lose some of these games. And with our new defensive tackle improving our defensive line, we still gave up 33 points to an FCS school. A couple of seasons ago, I was able to beat Boston College, so if we can't do it again, then that shows we're taking a step back somehow. Which wouldn't make much sense, because with this style of rebuild, every season we're supposed to get better, but then again, this is college football. Anything can happen, so even if I get excited about how we're playing against them with the chance to beat a top 6 team, there's going to be issues we run into, and our defense has got to step up. If we handle this the right way, we should be able to get the ball back, only down by 4. But we've whiffed a tackle, we've whiffed another one, and then even after we got them to punch it in, they have us on a 4th and 9 where I'm trying to throw it up to Jarquez Hunter, but they have been locking him up. Even as our running back, he was one of the faster guys that we had, so it was worth taking a deeper shot. And then when I looked at the injury report, us not winning that game makes sense. We didn't have our best cornerback or our best lineman. Theoretically though, once they get healthy, I was assuming we would have some success, just not this much. If you look at our record, we finished this season 5-7. Yes, there were some bad losses like this one to Texas, but we also won more games than we have ever before, and we had more touchdown passes than interceptions for the first time. I think it has to do with our playbook switch. Jarquez Hunter got 6.3 yards per carry over 1,000 yards, and even though we were a run-heavy team, Jaquan Gibson still went for almost 1,000 himself too, with Eli Stowers behind him as our second receiver. You know what that means? We're not going to be one of the worst offenses in the country. In fact, I'm expecting us to have to scroll for a little bit. I think we're still outside the top 100, but I'll take it, and apparently our defense is what needs more work, even though we've put more players on our defense than our offense. Whoever this wheel lands on next, I'm just hoping that they have somebody great at QB. This could be Haynes King. But there was another player I had in mind as well. I just didn't know how EA did his overall on this game. I was hoping he would be around a 90, but Eric Singleton Jr. is just an 85. So I'm starting to think, should we just pick up Haynes King, stick with his 90 speed, and hope that his accuracy stats are pretty good? I mean, I can work with this. The deep accuracy could be better, but it's either we take him or we just pick up a receiver that's going to have a QB that can't really throw the ball anyway. I think it was pretty clear that Haynes King was always who I was going to settle with. This is going to be a good season for us. I feel like we should be able to get to 5-7 again. And for whatever reason, if we can't, then I have to start questioning what position should we improve next. I really like how we were able to handle the Pandas with no issues, but I feel like Boston College is going to beat us. And either way, I'm going to sim this because I want to see how we do against Sam Houston. It turns out we're still not good enough to consistently beat the Eagles, but I think we've gotten past the point where we're no longer going to have a problem with Sam Houston. I just need to confirm. We already know that last season we were able to take them down, but by the final few minutes, we're in a spot where we're trailing by 8 points. And I'm not sure why I was expecting our offensive line to play better than they have in this game, but we can get this 4th down conversion. So we are not out of this one yet. I can just see the pocket collapsing, which means we're trying to make a play with Haynes King. It didn't give me the hurdle animation, but I can promise you, I was going to go for it. And on 3rd down, we're going to let Hunter get loose, see if he can do anything with this halfback screen, but he can't. I really don't like this playbook that we're using. I know it's done better for us in sim, but I can't move the ball with it. And I guess we're set up to have another season that's not too impressive. Well, we might have gone through a couple of close losses at the beginning of the year, but we were able to take down Indiana, who was ranked at the time, and we also were able to beat Liberty, who finished the season ranked 14. So that's got us at 6-6 as the 2nd best independent school. I believe that's a good enough season for us to make it to a bowl. We still have to be placed in a matchup, but I think it's going to happen no matter what, and we're playing the Zips. It's taken us quite a while, but we're going to have an opportunity to finish above 500, winning a bowl game. And I know we were already making progress towards this before we got Haynes King, but he was the one that made it happen. With more of a focus on running the ball instead of passing, we've been doing a lot better against the Zips. And then our defense just isn't giving up many points. For whatever reason though, this team just collapses in the final few minutes. It happened whenever we played Sam Houston. It has now happened against Akron. And it means if we want to go 7-6, we have to be able to close this game out. A touchdown is needed. They got man-to-man coverage on our tight end, so I know that he can route that kid up. And Eli Stowers can also block decently well. Down the field, he's holding up on his end of things as we go to the 2. If things keep going this way, we're going to get into the end zone a little bit sooner than I would have liked. And I just realized if I want to have a fun user to use that can get interceptions like that, we have got to pick up a linebacker next, because that is clearly something that we're lacking in at the moment. I've left the running back wide open in the flat. Now I can't even make a tackle. So it's looking like Akron's about to get into the end zone, and I know that they're going to want to run or throw for it. It might be another couple of seasons before we have another chance to win a bowl game, so it's important to me that we make the most of this opportunity. Haynes King making a play. And I think it really hurts us that besides Eli, we don't have any huge targets to throw it up to, but we're going to give him a jump ball, and he let it go through his hands. He had 6 inches on that dude, and he didn't even use it. He should have caught that with no problem. But because he didn't, that's how our season's gonna end, and Haynes King had the best stats that we've had out of a quarterback yet. Of course, we were expecting it. It's just nice to see that that's how it turned out. Look at these rushing yards. Just solid numbers from the offense. We're still missing that other receiving threat. But we are getting better and better. We're no longer gonna have to look for our name as one of the worst offenses in the country. We keep on moving up higher on the list. And it's the same thing on the defensive one as well. We were checking this for a while to see if we'd ever make some progress, and we clearly are, as we're scrolling for a very, very long time before I can find UMass. Are we even going to pop up? We're all the way down here. That really makes me wonder, though, where we should have our next addition to our team. I think it depends what school we land on. And I feel like there's a very obvious answer on who we should choose here, since he is listed as the best running back in this game. But we already have one, so I still have to be willing to consider some of the other positions they could offer. A 90 overall left end would be great, but also, can I pass up on somebody that almost won the Heisman Trophy? I think what we're going to have to do is we're just going to have a dynamic duo at running back. Passing up on Ashton Jeanty would be one of the dumbest things I could do. I mean, his stats are so much fun. And if you think anyone else is going to have stuff like 97 break tackle and juke move, you'd be wrong. This is one of those rare exceptions where you just take the best player available because he is the highest overall we have. And Ashton Jeanty has single-handedly brought this offense up to a 74 overall. I can't wait to use him. What we're going to do with Jarquez Hunter now that he's not starting is we're going to make him our slot receiver, since he's a higher overall than other guys we have. And I'm hoping this addition is enough for us to start the season 3-0 every time, no matter what. Although flukes can happen, the first game no longer worries me. We dropped 59 points on their head. And Ashton Jeanty did what he does best, rushing for over 200 yards and averaging 14.3 yards per carry. Will I be able to replicate that myself against Boston College? Absolutely not. But I'll do my best to take down a team that's ranked too high. Maybe we are just better off simming these games, though. We are currently trailing 23-0, and it took Jeanty way too long to score. It comes back to our offensive line just not giving him the best blocks in the world. But I believe in comebacks. I've started to figure out the plays that work best in this playbook. And in the final few minutes, we find ourselves down by just 6 points. We almost broke that off. We are currently dealing with a little bit of wear and tear damage, though. That probably held us back. So what I was hoping for was some man-to-man coverage, which meant we could go over to Jarquez Hunter. He is not able to create as much separation as we'd probably like for a receiver, but we can always come back to the ball. And the longer this drive goes on for, the better it's looking for the Minutemen. All we have to do is punch it in, but we're going to have to get a defensive stop. But it's definitely something that we could pull off. We had them on a 4th and 3, and they completed it. We have been able to get them to use some timeouts, though, so as long as they don't get out of bounds, we are going to be able to just wrap this one up, but they were able to there, and we stopped them on 4th down. As you can see, we've been able to come out on top of this rivalry. I don't think I'll hop into it again. I'd much rather get later in the year playing teams like Notre Dame and Texas, especially the better that we get. We're still just a 71 overall, and I like seeing player of the weeks, but I do understand it took my effort for us to beat Boston College, so I can see how we lost to Sam Houston. It would certainly be nice if we could go the rest of the season like last year, finishing 6-6, but there's also the chance that we don't make it back to a bowl. And if you're wondering what I do in between seasons, I just sit here on Hinge. One of these days, there'll be a girl special enough to actually put her in one of these rebuilds. As you can see, though, I see a 6-6 record, and that really turns me on. I'm seeing that we're taking down teams like number 16 Washington State on the road. We're beating Iowa, except giving up 35 points to them is something that we should probably look into. That should not be happening, but I just want to see who we get in our bowl matchup. Last year, we had an easier one. This one, we're getting UNLV. And the poor Rebels just can't escape Ashton Jeanty. I'm hoping hoping that he helps us beat them. Just to make sure he's not injured, I had to check the injury report. We're only dealing with one. I do have high expectations for UMass in this bowl game. I don't want to lose. And I wasn't going to let that happen. We have shut down UNLV pretty much all of this game. Unless they somehow score with a second left on the clock here, it is already over. And I feel like we're starting to make a lot of progress with UMass. Our offense has been able to do some impressive stuff without a line or any receivers. So imagine what it's going to be like once we find people that can help us do that. I am a little bit curious. Ashton Jeanty had 25 rushing touchdowns. We have seen no numbers like that before. Also 1,500 yards. And with us running the ball so much, Haynes King even had over 500. There wasn't much room for throwing it to. What I did learn is next season, we're going to make Eli Stowers our backup tight end. And the reason for that was without him being in the slot, he only got 7 targets out of this playbook, so he's going to actually be our #1 receiver. I think if Ashton Jeanty's rushing for 1,500 yards, it makes sense to stick with the run and shoot. We are going to get Miami or Miami, Ohio. I can't even tell. And after closer inspection, that arrow is just touching the green. We all know what that means. There's going to be about 5 to 6 options that I would be open to considering, even adding on to our offensive line. There's 2 rushers that I would love to have on our defense, but then you look at the top 3, at least excluding Damian Martinez, we got a tough choice to make. Xavier Restrepo is going to come in as one of the best receivers in this game. He's going to have some great route running stats. He's going to have amazing catching stats with 95 catching. He isn't the quickest in the world, but there's one thing I've talked about needing, and it's a receiver. He could be that, or we could go with Cam Ward since he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. He was recently drafted 1st overall by the Titans, and he would be a step up from Haynes King. That's no secret. You can see that his accuracies are about 5 or 10 higher in every category. Plus, he'd have stuff like 97 break sack, but he is the same speed. The way I'm going to make this decision is I'm going to look at the top quarterbacks and receivers on this game. There are some better ones that we could get. Like if I got Jalen Milroe, I would take that in a heartbeat over him, but there's not many other players that I would take over him. So if I'm really factoring speed, I'd say he's like the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback that I would want on this game, but whenever it comes to receivers, Xavier Restrepo's up there in that top 7. I feel like there could be an opportunity to get another quarterback if we needed it, but whenever it comes to receivers, we're not going to have that many chances to find a guy that has 90 plus route running and 95 catching. So you can see who I decided to bring on, and I think both of those options were really good. You couldn't have gone wrong with either one of them, but we're going to have to start adding to our defense again. We've gone offense a lot recently. And for the start of season 11, are we going to be able to do any better than 7-6? In my mind, I'm simming the first few games. I'd like to imagine with the addition of Xavier Restrepo, we're just going to win all 3 of them, but that was not the case. We lost to Boston College, so we're currently sitting at 2-1, and I wonder if we could take down Indiana. Not with me playing it this time, though. We might in the future. For now, though, we're just going to see how we do in Sim. And I don't know if Ashton Jeanty got hurt or what, but Jarquez Hunter won Player of the Week. I don't see him anywhere on the injury report. It's always one of our defensive linemen getting hurt, though. And we didn't just take down Indiana. We creamed them 48-7. If we can ever make it past this Army game sitting at 4-1, that's where things get interesting. And on paper, they're a team that we should be able to beat. But I added a military school to the schedule because sometimes the sim against them is a bit more fluky. They're harder to take down, and we're not going to play Notre Dame because of it. Like I said, if we can ever make it to this matchup with us sitting at 4-1, all of a sudden I feel like if we win this game, we could be in the playoff hunt. And if I don't hop into it, these are the types of results that we're going to see. 41-0. What I'm starting to notice is a little bit of a trend where we just seem to go 6-6 every season, but we're beating Iowa, we're beating UConn consistently. And there's just a tough stretch of games on our schedule we'll have to eventually get through. We had to play guys like Caden Salter, who threw 48 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So what do you do about that? In our bowl game, we're going to get to face Hawaii in the Idaho Potato Bowl. And this isn't the most attractive or enticing matchup in the world, but we'll see what happens. I wouldn't mind another 7-6 year, though now that we've won a bowl game, I don't think it's that important to play them every time. Whether we go 7-6 or 6-7, we're not a playoff team. And I thought we'd be able to handle Hawaii with no problems. Down by 11 points and out of timeouts, there's not much else I can do for this team besides hope that Xavier Restrepo makes some crazy play. And you know what? As long as we continue to make it to the bowl game, whether we win or lose, who cares? The only thing we don't want to see is regression. We make this team better every single season. As you can see, Haynes King has thrown for the least amount of interceptions that we've ever had. Something was a little off with the offense, though, because Ashton Jeanty rushed for less rushing yards. Maybe he got injured for a couple games. Jarquez Hunter got some more carries, but our receiving core didn't do great either. After some of the offensive additions that we made, I think it's time to go away from run and shoot and head right back to the Auburn playbook, where there's some fun stuff in here that I want to use. We also get to head back to the wheel, where this time it is going to take us to Washington. I'm not quite sure who they had on their team this past year that was good. And you might think that's crazy since they were in the national championship the year before, but they lost their head coach, players to the NFL, and I'm sure guys transferred out. What I've been able to find though is some solid guys like Denzel Boston. He was actually fun to use in a Road to Glory series a couple of years ago. And then Carson Bruner, not the fastest middle linebacker in the world, but it is an upgrade at middle linebacker. I think what's going to happen is I'll make this kid my user for a short time period, and then whenever I find a faster linebacker, he's just going to move to left outside linebacker or right outside linebacker. This is who I'm picking. With the addition of Carson Bruner, I feel like we have been getting pretty lucky with all these wheel spins. There were a couple misses that I wasn't too happy about, but that's about it. And there's been a lot of real superstars we've been able to acquire. I'm just hoping that they can open up this season 4-1. I'm literally not going to look at a single thing until then. And sure enough, we got what we were looking for. We're still losing to Boston College, so of our first 5 opponents, they're probably going to be the most challenging one for us to get past before we play Notre Dame. And I'm just surprised the team we're beating by the most points consistently is Indiana. We're playing the exact way that we need to though. If we're ever going to have a chance at the playoffs, we have to somehow win this game. And even then, I wouldn't trust us to finish out the year 11-1, 10-2, but it could happen. I've never done a rebuild where I can only play 1 game a season. It's going to make things harder for us. But that's why the challenge is win a national championship in 25 years or less, and with Haynes King missing passes, we have to kick our 3. See, here's the thing that I thought about in this game. They have Benjamin Morrison on our receivers, so they have one of our best corners on their team too. And then Notre Dame also has a loaded roster alongside him, while we only have about 10 players that are really good. We are still so far off of the level of being able to take down the Irish. And we're probably going to have to make a minimum of another 5 or 6 additions to our team before we can even compete. We are still pretty far off. It's evident seeing how we're finishing the season. This time we went 6-6. It's been like this for 4 years in a row now. And I just can't believe that UConn was closer to being in the running for the playoffs than us. It seems like the playbook switch for our offense didn't really do much. We're still in the exact same position. We get Maryland in our bowl game. And we do average more points per game than them, but I'm not sure if we're going to be able to take down the Terrapins. They happen to beat us 34-24, and I was originally going to throw UMass into like the Big Ten or the SEC just to make it even harder. But I'm glad that I didn't, or else I might be here for the rest of the week. Haynes King still putting up good numbers for a quarterback. I don't think that we're going to replace him at any time in the near future. We just have too many other holes to fill out on our roster. Ashton Genty not cracking 1,000 rushing yards. And then Xavier Restrepo's not cracking 1,000 receiving yards either. Eli Stowers is down here as our 4th receiver. There is something I want to point out though. If we look at points per game and we have to actually flip it around because of how high up we are in these rankings, our offense did take a step forward whenever it came to scoring. If anything, it has to be our defense that took a step back. Unless we lost a lot of close games, I'm not seeing our defense up here either and giving up the most points. And looking back at our schedule, we had a close loss to UConn, a close loss to Texas, a close loss to Liberty, a close loss to Temple, and even a closer loss to Boston College. So this team is probably better than we're thinking, and we'll see who we're picking from next. Wake Forest. I wasn't quite sure what we'd get out of them. My expectation was an offensive lineman that was like an 87 overall left tackle. That would have been my prediction, and they had someone close to that. We even have some good receivers to pick from, but look at the very top. Jasheen Davis comes in as a 90 overall left end. He has 95 finesse moves, and this is the perfect player to add to our defensive line to make sure that we get in a little bit quicker. Now that we've brought him in, we've officially added 6 players to our offense, 6 players to our defense, and that's a pretty even split. But even with all those changes, we've only been able to get up to a 74. We also know where our season normally goes south. We end up winning most of these first games besides against Boston College. And I'm curious, if we're good enough to beat them, start 5-0, how would we do the rest of the season? Odds are we'd still lose to Notre Dame, that's a given. But that would give us room to lose another game or 2 and still get into the playoffs. The issue is we just got annihilated by the Eagles, and I don't even think I should play this again. Clearly, besides the 1 or 2 times I took them down, we do better against Boston College when we just simulate that game. So moving forward, I'm going back to the plan where I am only going to play that Notre Dame matchup if we're 4-1 or better. And if we're not 4-1 by that game, we'll just quickly get through the year so I can add on another player. There are still clearly a lot of amazing things we can take away from the current roster. But even with us finishing this season 8-4, our best record yet, there's still a lot of parts about this team that I have got to be able to improve before we get to the playoffs, or else we're just going to get beat like we did against Notre Dame last year. I am kind of curious though, if we're able to take down Air Force in our bowl game, would we be ranked at 9-4? I'm almost a little confused how we had a better season this year than last year, since we're averaging 24 points per game. Last year we were averaging 30. And if we could have just scored a little bit more, we would have beat the Falcons. An 8-5 finish still isn't bad though. Haynes King kept his interceptions down to just 2. Ashton Genty rushed for 1,300 yards, a huge step up from last year, over 500 more. And then Xavier Restrepo and Eli Stowers were our 2 receivers on top. Jaquez Hunter was number 4, with Jaquan Gibson mixed in as number 3. Whenever it came to how many points we gave up as well, you all are not going to believe this, but we finished inside the top 25, and that's with an extra game playing in a bowl. If anything, it was our offense that really let us down. I'd say that it was in one of the 50 worst offenses, so it took a step back. And I think it's clear, after adding to our defense last season, this time around, we need to be looking at our offense that was almost Missouri. I don't think you all understand. We were just milli-inches away from getting to add on Luther Burden III to our roster. Instead, though, we're going to have to look at Mississippi State's team. And I'm not going to act like their choice of receivers is the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't mind having Kevin Coleman Jr. When I zoom out, though, take a look at the entire roster. There's one player that would be a better fit for us, and that's Ethan Minor. We've been looking to add to our offensive line, and he's the perfect fit for that. He's got 87 pass blocks, some high IQ. He also has 87 impact block. He can even block for the run. And I want you to take a look at Ethan's profile picture, and then we're going to sit here and wonder what he's going to look like when he's on the field. I don't know how this is possible, but this is what his player model looks like. And if there is any takeaway I have by trying to realistically create some of these players in this game, EA, just give us more customization, please, in College Football 26. I've had to go through quite a bit to even make this video possible to film. What did I say about how we're going to start each season, though? We're just going to sim straight to the Notre Dame game, and if we're sitting at 4-1 or better, then we're going to play it. Sure enough, we are currently sitting at 4-1 with 2 wins over ranked programs, but our one loss came by 1 point against Sam Houston. And how did we end up falling to them? Was it turnovers? We had no turnovers in this game. They just outplayed us, I guess. Either way, I have at least a little bit of hope that we can have a competitive matchup against Notre Dame, not get embarrassed in front of our home crowd. And if we do end up getting embarrassed, then we just wore black to our own funeral. You know, we've ended up playing pretty well in this game. We're about to get it back within a touchdown, but our defense has given up 42 points to the Irish. Making our offensive line better was one of the greatest things that we could have done, but we just can't get Notre Dame off of the field. And they'd eventually score another touchdown, which means we have to come back down 12. I just don't see that happening this season. On 4th down, it's going to be off target. And if we could just sort out how bad we played defensively, we had a chance at beating a top 10 team. What's so weird to me is after that loss to the Irish, our entire season just collapsed. Washington State, Liberty, and Texas all had good years, so they beat us. We barely took down UConn. And we went 5-7, so for the first time in forever, we didn't even make a bowl. Once we dive into the team stats, we'll see whose fault it really was. It wasn't Haynes King. He did what he was asked of. Ashton Jeanty averaged 7 yards per carry, so it's not his fault either. And Xavier Restrepo might have taken the back seat for Jaquan Gibson to be the #1 receiver, but I don't want to blame it on him. After seeing he was on the injury report, though, with a torn pec, and then also that we lost our starting left guard, it's starting to add up why we didn't win. But who knows? We still averaged 28 points per game, which is more than last season. Whenever it came down many points we gave up, we were about middle of the country for that. And I didn't think we were due for regression, but clearly we were. It's not going to be a guarantee that we always make it to a bowl. Now, with the wheel landing on Michigan State, Nate Carter's all I could think of, but we don't need him. We don't need a third running back. They do have a center that could be useful to us, even a tight end. I don't think we need a second one. But Tanner Miller can't start at center for us, so we're just going to move him over to either guard or tackle, wherever he fits best. What I ended up doing was I left him at center, and then I moved Ethan Minor over to tackle. He's an 86 there, which still isn't bad. And our overall is continuing to rise. We are now sitting at a 75 with a 77 offense. I am dumb, though. I accidentally let it sim for a bit too long. I was deep in my bag with the text I was sending, and now we're sitting at 5-2, skipping over the Notre Dame game. We can't rule out the playoffs for this season, though. It actually is a good thing that we just went right by it, because we were able to beat Temple, and now we face teams like Washington State, Liberty, and Texas. Yeah, the playoffs are off the table. There probably won't be too many occurrences, though, where we get to hop into this matchup against Washington State, so that's who we're going to play. And if we can take them down, we might crack the top 25 for 1 week before we end up losing to Liberty and Texas, and it all falls apart. It is nice that we've consistently upgraded our offense, because now I can trust it to actually make plays. Haynes King sees a ton of open space on the field, and he's going to take us into the red zone. That's how you end a quarter, already being up 14-0. And we could probably put the Cougars away with the touchdown on this drive, where I think Ashton Jeanty's going to have all the blocks lined up to where he can just take it in. This is where I wanted to get UMass to, this type of level, where maybe we aren't getting to the playoffs yet, but at least we have a team that is able to compete, probably beat about anybody. And eventually, there's going to be a fluky season where we get our opportunity. Another thing I can do is I can start to spend some of our tactician points and make it to where our players perform a little bit better. I started this file as a level 1 head coach, so whenever we spend the 75 coach points that we've acquired through the year so far, this will bump up our team overall. And it might take a few weeks for it to update, but I like our odds against Liberty a little bit more now. Jasheen Davis even won Defensive Player of the Week, but I'm not sure if it was enough. And it turns out we fell to undefeated Liberty by 4 points. That was the start of our losing streak, where Texas annihilated us. Iowa has been a team that we've struggled with in the past few years, and even UConn seems to have consecutive good seasons. So our schedule has turned into a bit more of a gauntlet than I thought it would be, especially since we finished inside the top 10 for points per game. We've been giving up about the same amount of points per game as well, but our defense is the next place where I've got to put a lot of focus. And that's why I'm saying unless we run into a super good receiver or a super good offensive lineman, all of our next 3 or 4 guys are going to go over to the defensive side of the ball, though a receiver would be nice if Eli Stowers is leading the team in receiving yards. This is the second time Xavier Restrepo can't stay healthy. He only made it out there for 5 games this year, and he had some awful stats in the last 2. Could have Cam Ward made a bigger difference for us potentially, but I didn't pick him, and I almost forgot that we still have a bowl game that we have to get through, and we are going to get to see an award. It's our first award of the video. Eli Stowers is the best tight end in the country. We get the Idaho Potato Bowl again. And like I pointed out, this is the most points per game that we have scored so far, so increasing our offensive lines overall was the best thing that could have happened. We finally have competent scorers out there. It means we're going to win a bowl, but going 7-6, beating New Mexico doesn't impress me too much. It's time to get back to that wheel. Our next step is getting a team that can get up to double-digit wins in a season. Ole Miss is an amazing poll. We have been so lucky. And this leaves the door open for multiple players that I could choose between. We could get Jackson Dart, upgrade the quarterback position. We could make our defensive line even better. Guys like Walter Nolan are not going to come around much. And then I can't ignore their receiving core because we could choose between Trey Harris, a better tight end, or Antoine Wells Jr. You could even pick up Jordan Watkins with his 93 speed. I mean, the options are endless. I said I wanted to stick with defense, but I'm having a hard time passing up on Trey Harris. And I just think this would make our offense even better than it was last season. Plus, I'm not sure when we're going to come across a guy like this again. By now, you know how I do this. He is a top 5 receiver in this game, so that's what we'd be passing up on if I went with someone else. And there's plenty of rushers I could find that would be good in the future. At the defensive tackle position, though, Walter Nolan is the second best in the country, so do we just take him now even though we already have one? We're currently running a 3-3-5 on defense, and it's not like I can move Nash to the outside because he comes in with his 57 speed. It's really rough. But I do think having a guy like Walter Nolan would still be that step up that I'm not going to come across again, and I think I'm going to settle for him over Trey Harris. What I ended up deciding to do, since he had 75 speed, was move him over to right end where he dropped a few overalls, but this makes for an incredible front 3. And I'm starting to wonder, how long is it going to take before we end up cracking like an 85 overall and we're consistently competing for spots in the playoffs? This time around, I'm going to do my best to pause it once we get to face Notre Dame. And for the first time, we are headed into this matchup sitting at 5-0, but Notre Dame is ranked number 7. If you can feel it in the air, I'm feeling it too. It is the potential of this team to be our first playoff one. But there's twice as much potential for everything to come crashing down again and for us to finish 6-6. Our outlook for the rest of this year really comes down to how we finish this one. And you would think that we'd get a little bit more time back there, but we haven't been getting that much time. Notre Dame has some very good pass rushers, which is why Haynes King is going to have to tie things up himself. He took Georgia down to the wire. He can take Notre Dame down to the wire. And they might have Benjamin Morrison on their side, but we have 1-2, and he didn't do a thing on this play. It would get us the ball back, though, where we've made it to midfield. Ashton Genty's going to get us 8 more. And let's see if we can pick up this 3rd and 3. It'd be a huge deal, so we rolled out. He has all the space, and we're going for the hurdle. I didn't upgrade hurdling. There are some stats that don't get shown on the player cards that probably get lost whenever I create these guys in Dynasty. And that's one that we're missing out on. It would have been cool to see him jump over that kid, but instead, we're just going to have to refrain from hitting that button. All of a sudden, it's 3rd and 12. They're going to put out man-to-man coverage. Eli Stowers, our slot receiver, drops it. And that's what I get for putting a tight end in that position. We're just going to have to hit a very difficult kick, and it couldn't have been more perfect than that. I thought I was locked in, but then they scored a touchdown so fast that erased everything. And I'm starting to think that we just need to pick up another receiver, and then we need to make sure our tight end is actually Eli Stowers. The backup makes it 4th and 8, which is manageable, but we just had our left tackle go down. And even if we could get this ball back with a little bit of hope, I have none. It really stinks that Notre Dame had to turn things up in the final few minutes. But what if it wasn't entirely over? What if I brought out Ashton Genty to make a play for us where they are definitely stopping the Wildcat? Why'd I stay in bounds? We don't have any timeouts left. We can't flip the play because it's Wildcat. I guess it still ended up flipping anyway. And this is it for us. There's a flag. There is a flag. And Ashton Genty has an opportunity to actually end it right here and get us the win if we got a 2-point conversion. That's what I was going to go for at least, but it's holding. It's coming back. That's how we got so free. And did you know we don't even get another snap? Since all the time ran off the clock, Notre Dame just gets the win right there. There is a lot of pain with that result, but we can't write off how the rest of the year could go. And that's because after this win against Temple, we're still sitting at 6-1. We aren't ranked though, so what I'm starting to realize is if we're ever going to be ranked in the the future make it to the playoffs, we might have to go 11-1. And it's literally going to take a super team to carry us there with this schedule. We took down Washington State in overtime though, so there is a little bit of hope. It's pretty unlikely, but if we won our final 4 games, we would be in the playoffs. And with this result, we're currently sitting at 8-1. We just beat Liberty, but we have to face Texas, and that's going to be the one team that could really beat us. I'm also a little bit scared because we're not even listed in the teams that are receiving votes to be inside the top 25, but then I scrolled down, and in the media poll, we're sitting at number 25. If we are able to pull off this win here, we would definitely get our recognition. And you best believe those 75 coach points had to get spent before I simmed it. But never did I think it was actually going to work. We are sitting at 9-1, number 19 in the country. This has been an incredible run, something that no one saw coming. Now I'm so glad that I took it a little bit slower because we are just a couple wins away from being able to crack that top 12. I was also currently 2-7, so they're having a bad year. This is set up for us to win. And I know we had to come out on top because if we scored 5 touchdowns, I was not matching it. We are number 11 in the polls with 1 game left on our schedule. And I swear, if we end up losing to our rivals UConn to ruin this year, I would be so frustrated. There's no reason that we should fall here. We have like the same overall team. We're having a much better season. But I can just tell by the level of XP that popped up on my screen that we lost to them. I really don't know what else we could have done besides just get better over time. We had a great year. Maybe if I took down Notre Dame, things would be different. But how did we end up falling to them of all programs? Without being in a conference and starting the season ranked so low, 10-2 is just not good enough for us to be a playoff team. We can only have 1 loss. And that's going to make it even harder to eventually win a championship because even though we had a very lucky year, it's not going to work out for us. Programs like 9-4 SMU get into the playoffs instead. Maybe I'm overreacting though. We could just get blown out by Wisconsin and then I'll realize that we weren't that good. But if Xavier Restrepo's having a performance like this, we probably won. 35-21. I think this team was actually good enough to get into the playoffs. We just happened to have a fluky loss because whenever it came to points scored, we were inside the top 20. And then defensively, Walter Nolan was such a great addition that we finished inside the top 10 for points given up after playing Wisconsin. I guess that was for total yards. If you search by points, then we're in like the top 15. Same thing. We had a top 12 defense. And Haynes King has been playing his role extremely well, but I want a quarterback that could throw for 40 touchdowns. Imagine that next to Ashton Genty, who keeps going off. Especially if we could get another good receiving target in here as well. I think that's where our offense would really shine. But I said I was going to commit to consistently improving our defense, and how are we going to do anything with Central Michigan's roster? To be fair though, I can't really complain. I feel like the wheel has done us pretty well, and I can't complain about the spin once I scrolled a little bit higher because you're going to see 2 great players for us to choose between. Since we don't even have a strong safety, you would think that I'd probably lean in McKinney's direction, but here's what I'm thinking about. He is 90 speed. And then if we look at Dante Kent, he is 96 speed. So this is somebody that we could have at cornerback, but if we need a strong safety in the future, we just move him over to strong safety. I always want somebody that's faster, so we're actually going to go with him, and then there's a great thing that we can use Michael Caraway Jr. for. He isn't going to be cornerback number 3 for us because whenever I make him the strong safety on the depth chart, he jumps up to an 83. And I feel like things are starting to come together as we are a 77 overall. There are some holes on this team that I still think we need to fill before we compete for a championship though. Right guard, right tackle, and then we also would need to pick up a couple other receivers. Then if you look at our left outside linebacker and our right outside linebacker, it's extremely weak, but besides that, maybe another corner that can get moved over to strong safety and we're good. That's only about 7 more players, but you have to hope that we land on a good team on the wheel or else we're not going to be able to pick anybody that'll help. We might also need to upgrade a couple positions before we're good enough to win it all, but Haynes King is clearly handling business fine. And this is the 2nd season in a row that we're opening up the year 5-0. Looking at the rest of our schedule though, you know that it's going to get tougher on Washington State, Liberty, and Texas. I actually think that we'd be better off picking up our first loss earlier on in the year, so we're going to skip Notre Dame. And that was the right decision, especially since they already had 2 losses. We're 6-0. We have never ever been undefeated for this long before. We might be able to get ranked if we beat Temple. But even though we did, if we scroll down in the polls, you're not going to see us there, and we're actually ranked 29. What it's really going to take is beating Washington State, which I was able to handle just fine by hopping in, so we're actually going to face Liberty, then sim against Texas, and the rest of the season. But this is where we really test how good this roster is, and we know that there are some glaring holes. I'm a little bit surprised that they haven't shown yet. We're currently 8-0, we got ranked, and it's really feeling like we're about to get into the playoffs. But first, I just had to make sure that our guys got a little bit more of an upgrade to their stats. What I'm thinking is I can go in, help us beat Liberty, and then we lose to Texas, but finish out the year 11-1. And that gets us our first playoff berth, but that's only half of the battle when it comes to winning it all. This team has to be good enough for me to be able to handle 4 top teams in a row while beating them all in the playoffs. And that's on Heisman difficulty without me being the best player in the world. As you can see, I'm currently struggling with Liberty. Although we have made some progress, and we could probably have a little bit of a miracle run. I still don't see us winning a championship this year. Haynes King gets us to the 10. And I'm just surprised that we've been able to have back-to-back seasons with not very many fluky results. I'm not even sure where Ashton Genty's at. I've yet to see him in this game. And look at all the great players that we're missing. These are 3 superstars that I have picked. Xavier Restrepo's out for the season. Ethan Minor, our left tackle, out for the season. And Genty's out with a foot fracture for 5 more weeks. There's a reason that this game is currently this close. And I should have had an interception right there. What happened? I'm genuinely so confused. I was on the ball spamming triangle. Salter is breaking sacks. And I think it's pretty obvious who EA wants to win this game. They don't think we should improve to 9-0, and I can't blame them. I'm currently usering with like a 60 overall at linebacker. Salter's going to get him closer to field goal range. And I'm sure that's going to be just enough for their kicker to drill this. Without Xavier Restrepo out there, we're going to have to lean on guys like Jarquez Hunter to actually catch the ball for us. He's been our slot receiver, but he's doing well. And I'm not going to forget about Stowers either. He just has to get open and hang on to the football. We're just 2 minutes away from the end of this game now, but Hunter's going to be able to take advantage of all of that open space. And I don't want him to score too soon, so these blocks can't be the best. The less time that Liberty has to respond back, the better for us. I really don't want to throw this away though, and I'm going to throw a pick. I don't know what I was thinking. We're not going to talk about it. We're just going to act like that didn't happen. Our slant should be caught, and we did give them time to respond back with a field goal, but there's only 30 seconds. Here's the issue though. That is plenty of time for the computer to make a play. We've got to knock this ball out. And that might have just saved our undefeated season. If he makes that catch, then they are 100% field goal range. Instead, we're forcing the turnover, and we could even go for the return here. I'm not going to lateral it. I have done some stupid stuff in the past. This is not the video for that. We are going to take our win. It skipped over the celebration where they put on their pirate hats or whatever they are, though. I feel like a real idiot for saying pirate hat. They're Minutemen, so that has something to do with being in the army. Those are sailors, I think, and anytime they get a defensive turnover in this game, or probably real life too, which is where EA pulled it from, they have this sailor hat that they throw on and celebrate with. So maybe we'll get to see that in the future. For now, we can just expect that Texas is probably going to beat us. But maybe not if Jashin Davis is going to have a performance like this. I cannot believe it, but we have beat Texas 2 seasons in a row. We still have to finish the year against number 7 UConn. Why do they have to be good? I was struggling again. They went into this one 2-7 last year as well. But here's the thing. For the 2nd year in a row, our luck in sim is run out. For a week, that loss completely dropped us out of the top 25. And yes, that's right. We are ranked at 10-1 below 7-5 Syracuse. It's getting ridiculous out here. I don't think we'd get into the playoffs at 11-1, even if we took down number 4 UConn. And who would have thought that would be the team on our schedule we were worried the most about? I will say this though, we came out on top 36-21, and thankfully the college football playoff poll has respected us a little bit more. They still have us ranked below Washington State, who we beat, but we're inside the top 12. I don't think that's going to last through conference championship week though. I think we're going to fall out of the playoffs because the 5 highest seeded conference champions have to get in, and most of these guys just aren't ranked high enough. This is really sad, but I think once we get past the Heisman Trophy winner, we're going to have a bowl opponent that we're facing. I guess we're going to see Jashin Davis win Best Defensive Player, but I don't care about the awards. All I wanted to do was get us into the playoffs, and we're playing in the Gronk LA Bowl. We just went 11-1, and we have to play 7-6 New Mexico. What type of draw is this? We are really going to have to go undefeated to get into the playoffs. We beat teams that are in there that are ranked above us. Washington State, we beat in the head-to-head. They have one less loss. They don't play in a real conference either, so this is not fair. And we're just collecting bowl wins like it's nothing. We did all of this missing some of our superstars as well. Keep that in mind. We were an injured team, and we lost to Iowa by 1 point. We were 1 point, a few injuries away from being undefeated in the playoffs. And that tells me that if we get a little bit luckier in the future, we're doing the right thing. This season, with our new addition at cornerback, we gave up the fewest points in the country. We had 41 sacks, 13 interceptions, and it was actually our offense that fell off a little bit. It's down here inside the top 25 potentially. We know why that was though. We were missing Xavier Restrepo, our best receiver. Haynes King, still solid years, and Ashton Genty, he didn't have his left tackle to block for him. If we just had a couple other pieces on offense that could have replaced those injuries, I think we would have been in the playoffs. And if the wheel can land on Central Michigan, but we can still get upgrades to our team, it doesn't really matter who it lands on. I don't know what the odds are that we would land on both Miami teams, but I'm thinking their best player's an 86 overall overall halfback, maybe a lineman. They do have a 90 overall middle linebacker, but then this one really shocked me, a 95 overall right outside linebacker. We have somehow been blessed by getting back-to-back MAC schools on the wheel. This was one of the positions that we needed to fill, and he is a 95 overall, so he is instantly going to make a huge impact. In fact, Matt is the best right outside linebacker in college football 25. Where did he get drafted? I'm feeling like a casual right now. This kid's going to be our best defender, the second best player overall wise on this roster. And he's officially gotten our first unit, our defense, up to an 80 overall. After seeing that we beat Notre Dame in sim last year, what I've actually decided to do is we're just going to sim to the first college football playoff poll. And it wasn't the Fighting Irish that we fell to. It was Temple by 3 points. There's so many fluky sims throughout this game that's why I set the thing at 25 years. I think it's going to take us that long to win it all. I also believe that hopping into play Liberty is not worth it whenever we have to face Texas next week. But I should have used our 75 coach points in the tactician tree before that game because we ended up losing by 8. How we finish out the year now doesn't matter. We know that we can't get into the playoffs as a 2-loss team. But you all are not going to believe this. Look at our ranking. We're number 12 in the country after winning our final 3 games. I genuinely have no words. I didn't even think it was going to be possible. I was just ready to get on to the next year, but we're sitting there at number 12 before conference championship week. And the way that things are set up, I think we're going to be okay to get one of those playoff spots. It's just remarkable to me that we can be in the running at 10-2, but 11-1 last year was not good enough. Our schedule must have been harder. What is the Independence Bowl doing here? It is actually so over for us. We are going to finish at number 14 in the polls. Maryland and Ole Miss at 9-3 went above us, and I can't really say that we deserve to be in over any of these teams. If anybody, Oklahoma and Jacksonville State, but they lost in their conference championship, and the committee doesn't want to punish teams for that. So we get stuck facing Colorado in this game, and we're averaging 34 points per game this year. We had a healthier team. It makes sense. It's another bowl win. And you know what? It's now been 3 years in a row where we haven't lost to Texas in sim, so we're going to keep simming that and play one of these other games. That's got to be the move going forward. Haynes King, 28 passing touchdowns, still has not crossed 30, but he always keeps the interceptions low. Ashton Genty was not our leading rusher. He must have gotten hurt, but I guess that's why you have a backup running back, and we do need to get another receiver in here. It's also kind of odd that Matt Selipek led our defense in sacks whenever he's playing in a 3-3-5 as an outside linebacker, and the addition of him has caused us to give up almost 60 more points in a season. We had a top 10 defense though, and a top 10 offense, which still was not good enough to get us into the playoffs. So what can I say? We're just gonna have to keep on spinning this wheel, keep on adding players to our team, and we got Missouri, finally. I am so excited because I've been waiting for another team to get landed on where we could pick up a second wide receiver. I even talked about Luther Burden III earlier whenever it went to Mississippi State instead. And yes, he is 97 catching. He has great elusiveness stats, and he comes in with 94 speed, so he's going to take our offense to a whole other level. I will say, though, one thing that is unfortunate is he's not going to come with his abilities because it would have been nice to have Gold Shifty and Platinum Takeoff. Besides the wheel landing on Colorado, this was the best way that we could have added a second receiver to this team. He instantly slots in as wide receiver 1, and I cannot wait to see what he does. For whatever reason, our offensive overall didn't go up, but it's okay. I think we're only starting season 19, and that means we could still make a few more additions before we really need to win a championship. Just wait till you see what this team has cooked up this year, though, with Luther Burden. We have 3 wins over top 25 programs. We are 8-0, and we're about to play number 9 Liberty. Now, you might be wondering, where does that get you ranked inside the top 25? I mean, that's a pretty impressive schedule, pretty impressive year that you're winning all these games. This is the media poll. We're number 24. If you look at the college football playoff poll, we're not even in it. What that means is this seems like a season where we're just going to have to go undefeated to make the playoffs, and I'm starting to think this would have been easier if we just played in a conference. As we head into this matchup, I'm happy to report we have 0 injuries. But something is not right with this offense. There is no world where we should only have 3 points versus Liberty so far. I still simulated quite a bit of this game before playing, and I'm just confused at how we're in this position, but we're still going to try and take advantage of having the better team. We just need Haynes King to start hitting his target more. I'm gonna have to break that sack right there, and I am playmakering, but that dude isn't even moving. This is not the time for us to rush into issues. They're running zone coverage. Our left guard did a terrible job blocking, but we still pick it up. And it's been interesting. They've been able to press our receivers throughout this entire game. So we still don't have that deep threat to really make a lot of noise, but we do have some halfback angle routes where Ashton Genty can make a play. I just expect that between Luther Burden and Xavier Restrepo, one of them is going to be able to beat some of these cornerbacks stacks deep. And it was about time that we were able to get it down to the red zone. It's now 17-all, our undefeated season is still alive, and we left that guy open. But we generated just enough pressure, and it seems like we're going to be able to pull this one away. I can understand, though, why we lose some matchups whenever we sim. It's hard to go undefeated. I don't know how we've been able to slip out of there with Haynes King. I literally just ran into a sack almost. But I think you can understand why I thought it was so important that we got a quarterback that was fast. I would have loved to throw it over that middle linebacker, but the look just wasn't there. And maybe I'd feel a little bit more comfortable in the pocket if we picked up another guard and tackle, but until that happens, I'm always going to look to run first, and it's been doing us well. We don't want to score a touchdown too quick, though, now that they're using timeouts. But I also can't pass up on a free touchdown if it's right there. This has taken a lot, and our season could still go downhill from this moment. But we worked our way back into a game that we probably should have won in the first place anyway, and they ran out of time, so they didn't even get off a final snap. Before that matchup, there was something that I should have handled, and I didn't, so now we're going to take care of it. We're going to make sure our blocking's better on the offensive line, and then our defense gets a bunch of upgrades. And we didn't even need that to beat Texas last year, but I have a feeling we're about to run out of luck against the Longhorns, even though they're 4-5. Maybe not, though. We do have Luther Burden now. And we didn't just beat Texas, we ran them off of the field 38-14. With how well we're playing this season, you would think that we'd be a lock for the playoffs, but no, we're not even inside the top 12. And if this is where 3-6 Iowa comes in and messes up our year, I'm going to be salty. I've seen player of the weeks on both sides of the ball, though, and this just can't be real. The Hawkeyes scored 48 points on us. This is what I get for all those jokes about their offense. I don't even care anymore. I'm just simming to the end of the season. And after dropping down to number 24 after that loss, it turns out that we beat UConn and moved back up to 12. Not this again. I genuinely could not think of a worse spot to be in headed into conference championship week, especially because there are teams that are going to be ranked outside of the top 12 that are going to get in this year. And I literally don't think there's anything I can do about this. I think no matter what, we're not going to be in the playoff again. In my mind, I didn't think much about it, but there was no calculation of results that could go in our favor to the point where we would actually get in. We're going to be playing North Texas in the Frisco Bowl. And it really stinks that because Liberty plays in a conference, they get in every year above us, even after we beat them. We were the last team out. Even Boston College got the 3 seed, number 5 in the country, who we beat to start the year and has 3 losses. We're going to have to go undefeated to get in. And you could say that we still need to upgrade right guard. We need to upgrade right tackle and maybe our left outside linebacker. But after that, we just have to get lucky. Our starting lineup's basically complete, but it couldn't take down 7-5 North Texas. And I don't even know what to think about this season anymore. Haynes King, pretty good year. It's the same stat line every year. Ashton Genty, over 1,000 rushing yards. Receiving wise, we just aren't putting up many numbers through the air. And I want to say that it's time for a playbook switch, especially if we're not going to finish with a top 5 offense with as many stars as we have. It's so weird though that with the more defensive superstars we add, the more points that we seem to give up each season. But at least we've made a lot of good progress. This is something that can be built on, and it looks like Toledo is going to be where we get our next player from. A year ago, getting Quinion Mitchell would have been incredible, but Toledo's one of the better teams in the MAC, so I know that they're going to have some decent options available for us to choose from still. 2 safeties and a receiver. I like this. If we wanted to switch over to an air raid offense and really start throwing the ball more, Newton would be the perfect player to pick up, and that's kind of weird to switch over to when you have Ashton Genty and Jarquez Hunter, but I am considering it. Another thing we could explore is just picking up a strong safety. Maxon Hook would mean that we have an actual starting strong safety that plays there normally. And Emmanuel, his partner at free safety, I'm not considering because he is 1 speed slower. That's why I'm deciding we're just going to settle with Maxon Hook. We're going to make our defense a little bit better, and I'm hoping that this next season we can have our first undefeated regular season. There are some lower overall players on our roster that are bringing our true overall down. I'd say we're probably around like an 86 at the moment, and since we've had so many successful years in a row, I wouldn't be surprised if we struggled once. I seem to have predicted that pretty well because Notre Dame took us down by 6, we lost to Washington State by 3, and all of a sudden we're sitting at 6-2. We know that we can't get into the playoff from here. It would take a miracle run and then a lot of other teams above us losing. But all of a sudden, Haynes King has decided that he's going to have his best performance of this entire video. It's been like 15 years since we got him. If he can keep that up for 3 more games, we're going to be very good at 10-2. And even at 3-6, Texas is the team I'm expecting to take us down. Either way, we're just going to sim to week 15, see where we're sitting. And I knew that I never should have put Iowa on this schedule. Recently, they've just been beating us over and over. We still don't have a starting lineup of superstars though. We need to pick up up 2 more linemen. We need to make sure that we get 1 more linebacker, and then I'll feel a lot better about who we're putting out there. We won the best center award. And for our bowl game, which could get us to 10 wins, we're playing Arizona State. One thing I noticed is we averaged 38 points per game this season, so that's got to be in the top 5 in the country. And with this exact score, we're going to keep our average the same thing. Maybe not. It somehow brought us up to 38.8 points per game, even though we scored 38. It can't raise the average. I don't know how that works. We're the number 1 offense in the country. That's what's important. When it comes to our defense, it might not be up here in like the top 15, top 20. It's actually pretty far down here. We're scrolling for a while, so that's where our issue was. And I feel like Haynes King should have been in the Heisman running with his best stat line yet. Our offense didn't even improve for this season. They just happened to have a very good year. It does help though whenever Xavier Restrepo can stay healthy. And there's just 5 seasons left before I'd fail the challenge of winning it all in 25 years, so we need some good additions. It was a pretty close call, but it did land on Utah, where they have a ton of talent for us to choose from. No, we're not going to pick up Cam Rising. He is still in college. We are going to get their 92 overall right tackle though. I was thinking about it. They also have a linebacker that I would have liked, but this kid is going to replace a 67 overall right tackle, so that's a huge jump in overall, and it's going to give us more time in the pocket. With that addition, our team overall has raised to an 81 overall offense and an 81 overall defense. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but we're about to start our 21st season. It's the same thing that we've done the last couple years. We're just going to sim straight to the first college football playoff poll. And that just allows us to know pretty quick if it's another season that we should care about or write off. Since we're sitting at 6-2 with a loss to Sam Houston by 18 points, I know that this year we're not going to get into the playoff, and it really doesn't matter how the rest of this year wraps up. What I didn't realize though was how bad things could get for us. I have to assume that Haynes King got injured if we're finishing 7-5. We haven't seen a record like that in a long time. And it's so easy to predict what's happening. He fractured his kneecap, so whenever he missed those final few games, we just kept losing. But that lets me know if there's an option to get a second quarterback, it might be worth it for us to get a good backup, because especially if he were to get injured in the playoffs at some point, I would be super bummed out. None of those individual stats really stood out to me. Our offense isn't even in the top 25 this season, so that is a huge amount of regression for us as we're down here at 28 points per game. And since those two work together, our defense also took a step back. It's starting to feel like we're just not going to be able to win a championship with this team. I want Tennessee to get the wheel. It didn't go to them. And what am I going to be able to get out of Temple? That's the real question. I know they don't have too much on this team that I'm going to be excited about, an 84 overall kicker or an 85 overall wide receiver. Although Dante Wright isn't going to be somebody coming in that's a 90 plus overall that gets you extremely excited, he would make for a good wide receiver 3. Right now, it's Ben Jarquez Hunter, our running back. And I think that's the obvious choice, because it's either that or we just make sure our kicker's a little bit better. Things could have been much worse for landing on Temple on the wheel. Our wide receiver room got a nice upgrade. And for whatever reason, our team overall only changed on defense, even though we added an offensive player to it. I don't know how that happens. I've said numerous times throughout the year that the overall system on this game is so messed up. And we've gotten ourselves a season that we can work with. We did drop a game to Boston College by 6, which is a little bit disappointing, but everybody else we have handled well. Liberty is the last ranked team on our schedule. And just because I haven't gotten to hop into a game yet today, we're going to face them, even though I think there could be teams that have a better chance at beating us. I have to remind myself, though, that even though we could go 11-1, that's not enough to get into the playoffs, and we get to see some snow on the ground, which means it was worth it to choose this game. I know for a fact, with them wearing all white jerseys, I'm guaranteed to throw them an interception at some point. But at least we're getting into the end zone early. With all of the snow, points became a little bit harder to come by, and we've been able to force Salter into multiple interceptions. That's going to end this. So there's Maxon Hook, a recent addition we made to this team from Toledo, making a difference, helping us take down a top 10 team. It's only right that after a win like that, we're going to go from unranked all the way up to being ranked number 18th in the country. And I just realized that I've been doing the same tactician boost every season. So if these don't work to get us to finish 11-1, maybe I switch it up in the future. Unfortunately, Texas is having a better year this time around. They're 21st in the country after taking us down. And it's so weird that 5-6 years ago, we had a better chance at getting into the playoffs than now. From what I can see, as we head into this final week, we're not going to be able to jump over all these teams that have 3 losses, so we need a lot of schools to lose above us while jumping higher in the polls for beating UConn. And all of this comes after getting a win against Iowa. With Haynes King throwing for 5 touchdowns, I'm sure we won. But as I look at our schedule, I'm more so focused on our ranking. 14th in the country isn't going to get us into the playoff. What I should have done is just hopped into that game against Texas and not simmed against Liberty, taking the chance that we would have been able to just survive through it. And And this has got to be the worst string of luck ever because we have now missed out on the playoffs by one spot like 4 times. We were so close to getting in, but instead we get to play Western Michigan in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. And I know that we're probably going to lose the first couple times we get into the playoffs, so I just want to make it there in the first place. It's unfortunate, but adding on a receiver allowed Haynes King to throw for 41 passing touchdowns, the most he's had so far, with Ashton Jeanty also rushing for almost 1,500 yards. And I feel like besides having a right guard, our offense is basically complete. On the defensive side of things, there's this one glaring hole as a starter that I have not addressed. And I think that's one of the major things holding us back from having the top defense in the country. On the offensive side of things, we were number 2. This is a playoff team. We are inching closer and closer to getting there each season. Memphis or Michigan, who are we picking from? It is Memphis. And although I would have preferred Michigan for guys like Josiah Stewart, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, we can still work with Memphis. I'm sure that they have guys on this team that are pretty solid, and their best is our running back. I'm not going to overlook 90 overall guard Xavier Hill, though. This is exactly what we need to fill that one last spot on offense. And I have considered also picking up the middle linebacker, just moving him to outside linebacker, or even getting Seth Hennigan for a backup quarterback, but we're not going to do it. Good things come to those who are patient, so I'm just going to wait until we get the perfect player to fill that one missing spot. We have everything else on this team handled now. And I got just 3 years left to win it all, or else I'm going to have to give away a copy of College Football 26. I like doing stuff like that, though, especially when the random commenters are people that normally would never comment. Y'all leave some really nice ones, but I just want to say some nice things about this team, and I can't, because we are not going to be 8-0, though we are ranked inside the top 25, about to play 2 top 10 teams. And we learned our lesson simming against Texas, so we're just going to sim against Liberty and see what happens. We did it. We took them down. We held them to just 7 points. And facing off against a team like the Longhorns is a real test to if this roster is good enough to compete for a championship. I still think that we need to address that hole at linebacker first. And we are in a 13-13 tie game here at the end. It looks like we might have been able to beat them deep. But something interesting about having all of these stars at receiver is that doesn't happen too much for us. Haynes King is going to scramble to pick up the first down, and I'm trying to slide. As long as we get in field goal range, take down a little bit of clock, we've won. But this is when he decides that he's just not going to hit his targets. And it is 3rd and 13 where I'm hoping for man-to-man coverage. If it's not man-to-man coverage, we're going to just get in field goal range. Fumbled it straight to Texas. Beautiful. Now I feel like we have no choice but to send in a blitz, trying to force a quick stop. We're going to have to let them get into the end zone or else this one is over. And that really stinks. We have blown our opportunity. I think forgetting that I have 98 overall Ashton Jeanty to get it to was one of the dumbest things I could have done, but we got hit. That ball lofted in the air for too long, and now we're down by 14. Wonderful. I can't even blame the fact that we're missing a linebacker because the fact that we scored 13 points is more of a glaring issue. And you'd think that we wouldn't fall that far because it is a quality loss, but we fell almost all the way out of the top 25. We might be able to win these last 2 and get back up to like number 15, but we know how this works. We're just going to go to the end of the year. We'll probably have a loss to Iowa, and if not, we're going to finish the season ranked 13. Or maybe we're going to finish the season ranked 12th. I can't get too excited. We have missed the playoffs being in this spot before. It's really just going to come down to who's playing in the conference championship games. And once again, I think we're going to be left out because some of the teams getting in are going to come from outside the current top 12. There is no part of me that wants to see our bowl game matchup after this Heisman screen because I just know it's going to be a letdown for us. Wait. We've made it in. We're number 11 in the country. We might have a very tough matchup, but I don't care. We ended up getting in with the loss of Penn State to USC. One of those 2 teams had to drop down. And we were literally the last team out, but finally, we had luck go our way. Our path to winning it all is going to be tricky, but we always knew it would be. We just needed an opportunity, and this is the first one that we're getting where we have one of the top 5 defenses in the country, and of course, we have the number 1 offense in the country by a good margin. We still haven't seen Haynes King in the Heisman race or winning the Heisman Trophy, but he's putting up the stats to do that. Ashton Jeanty, less rushing yards this season, but I think it's because we threw the ball more. Either way, there weren't any too drastic of changes on our offense besides scoring more points. Oregon is the higher overall team, and they're going to get the home field advantage, but I'd say if you took the low overall guys off of our roster, our teams would be pretty comparable. After not playing too well against Texas, turns out solution was run the ball. And once you establish the run really well, they also have to respect the pass. We could also just come into Wildcat and see if Jerquez Hunter can make the play himself. He can. But I no longer have to be scared of these huge defensive fronts because we have the offensive line to block for it. It's 21-0 pretty early on in this game, and I'm not planning on blowing this lead. In fact, it's just going to get worse for the Ducks. I say all of that to admit that on their last 3 possessions at the end of the game, they've gotten 3 touchdowns. We needed this onside kick, and they still have all 3 of their timeouts, but look out there on the field and see who is there. It's not because of injuries. We are going to be missing Tanner Miller, our starting center, for the rest of the season, but these other losses are just low overall players. It's actually the fact that we were up by so much that that I now have to mass sub our starters back in because the game doesn't know to put them back. They would have let us continue to use our backups even though we're in a 7-point matchup. I don't get that. That is a problem that EA should not be having. On 3rd and 9, we're getting tackled. And yes, we're punting the ball back to them because there is a real possibility that Oregon is able to pull off this comeback. My thought is if we just go cover 4 drop, then they're not going to be able to move down the field quick enough. There's a lot of guys over on this left side. They must have sent a flood concept and didn't get anywhere with it, but they can't even make a pass in bounds. I had to get off of the safeties. I had to back them up. I do not want to be the reason that they get like a 40-yard play. And with 8 seconds left, they need to go 94 yards down the field, but that was a really good throw. I don't think that they're going to get up to the line in time to spike it or anything, but just the fact that we almost blew a 28-point lead is a little concerning. Haynes King's going to have to score some more touchdowns in the next round. And in that game, we're going to be facing off against USC. Outside of our matchup, if you take a look at the rest of the bracket, we got a Clemson-NC State quarterfinal game, a Notre Dame Liberty one, and then a BYU-Kansas State Big 12 one. So if anything, this one has the least amount of storylines with it. I just hope that the Trojans don't destroy us. Not only are they the team that won the Big 10, but they get to play this right down the road from their school. But I guess I should have known if I'm going to get to play with a super team, we can normally win. We've already scored 21 points in the first quarter while they can't get on the board. And it's probably only going to get worse for them from here. They are able to get in some rushers. We're trying to escape it with Haynes King. But that was just me being dumb, not taking them too seriously because of how we opened up the game. And I'm starting to regret that. Every single point matters. We are headed into the 4th only up by 7. And I know that we blew our lead in the last matchup. I'm hoping the same doesn't happen here. Ashton Genty is extremely exhausted. He's already rushed for 140 yards. And without our run game being very viable, we've had to throw the ball a little bit more, where we still have some 74 overall receivers that get out there. Fortunately for us, I think we're about to finally get onto the board again. We're short, but still close enough to punch it in on the next play. How we close this out now is going to all go back to our defense. And we have a great system going where I just use her, the lower overall player. The rest of them can make plays like this, and Benjamin Morrison gets us to the 10. For a split second, I will admit, the Trojans had scared me a little bit. But I think even though we're dropping plays like that, we're going to be able to get into the end zone as Wright goes all the way to the 1. I should have never disrespected Temple. That pickup has made a big difference for us. Genty doesn't get in. And honestly, we just need to keep him out of this game. If we're about to make it to the semis, we're going to need him healthy for 2 more matchups. And I really thought it was over after that, but USC never gave up, so we needed this 3rd down. I feel like if we didn't get off to a hot start in the last 2 matchups, then we wouldn't find ourselves in the semifinals, but that does not matter now because Hunter is going to end it. Our offense came alive whenever we needed them the most, even though USC's did as well. And it looks like we're going to get Kansas State next. If we can get past them, we might have a rematch against Notre Dame. And I didn't hop into that one, but they are one of the 2 teams on our schedule that happened to beat us. I'm not quite sure what happened to Texas. It seemed like they were about to have a season where they would have been in the playoffs. But thankfully they didn't because it opened up the last spot for us and we've made the most of it. The key to our success recently has been how we open things, and we're going to catch this one with Luther Burden. Not exactly how a fade route's supposed to be run, but it still works. I'm telling you, this team just comes out hot and it seems to be almost all that we need. I have a playmaker going over towards the end zone. We're going to get a flag, thankfully. That was supposed to be on Triangle, who would have been wide open. But since we just had a little bit of contact with the defensive back, the refs are going to support the offense. It is kind of crazy how that works sometimes. Luther Burden gets his 2nd touchdown. And I think you can understand how every game seems to go in our favor because of the way that we open it. I'm not sure Kansas State's even going to have what it takes to scare us with a comeback. Their offense just hasn't shown that much life, and we should have been able to knock it out. We did. Here we go, 4th and 6 now. I'm going to guard the tight end. That's who's open. We're going to pop that ball in the air. We can't grab the pick, but that was a key part in making sure that we're moving on to the Natty. We've definitely had to build a super team to make this happen, but winning it all might take less time than I was thinking it would. We're going to go over to Tactician, spend our 20 coach points in making our tight ends and receivers catch a little better, and that'll prepare us just a little bit more. If we take one final look at this roster, if I had to guess just building this roster together out of NIL value, it would probably cost upwards of 40-50 million to bring all these players on here. So it makes sense why we are starting to finally shine. We've been waiting for that moment, and we're going to get the Irish in the national championship. They've been beating every team that they've played so far pretty well, but they have faced NC State, Liberty, and Tulane. So it's not like they've been playing powerhouses, but they probably don't think UMass is one either. I'm here to tell you, though, that we will be if we can just walk away with that trophy. And I swear, every single game in the playoffs has started the exact same way. We get down the field, we score the first couple touchdowns, and then from there, the other team just tries to pull off the comeback against us. But we still haven't gotten in yet, so I'm going to spread things out and let Jerquez Hunter put it in. What's unique about this game, though, versus all of the others is Notre Dame responded with 7 themselves, so we're back at a tie game. And that might just mean that this turns into a shootout, but I trust our offense in that scenario. The Irish have been very strong up front, but Hunter doesn't seem to care. And forget Ashton Genty, this is who we need to have out there because he's scoring all the touchdowns. Once again, though, Notre Dame got one themselves. On our third down, we're going to be able to find Eli Stowers. And I feel like I ended up constructing this team really well. All the players that we brought in have been extremely effective. Maybe not our defense, though. The fact that Notre Dame just keeps on scoring lets me know it's going to be a long day for us. And that probably should have been an interception, but we put it in the perfect spot. This is not the time to make mistakes. That's for sure. Ashton isn't going anywhere. And where's Jerquez Hunter whenever you need him? We're going to go to our drag on third down that they've stuck with pretty well. It doesn't matter. Wright can hang on to the football and put us back up 7. Plays like that win championships, but also getting stops do the same. I should never have clicked on right there because they're getting a 40-yard touchdown run. And Notre Dame is in a perfect position right now to keep on holding us. We're making this catch. It was always most likely going to be a tight championship game. These teams are both really good. And I'm starting to wonder, when are we going to see man-to-man coverage out of them? I wanted to hit Luther Burden. Instead, we fumble it in the pocket, making it 3rd and 16. And this is where I'm just going to take the sack. We need to make sure that we get some points on this drive, that I don't throw an interception. And I would have if I let that ball out. And I better not be giving up another 3rd and long for a touchdown. We saw what happened the last time I played. It didn't go well, but it did there. And you know what? We haven't taken like any deep bombs. I'm going to try and let Xavier Restrepo make a play. The reason for that is on this side of midfield, in my mind, this is 4-down territory. And that decision has paid off immensely for us, though Ashton is finally going to get in himself. I was worried he was about to have like another 2-yard carry, but that wasn't the case. We put ourselves in the position to run away with this, and we got another stop. But we almost just let the Irish back into this game by fumbling the ball there. I am glad that we scooped it up. Up by 3 possessions. At this point, I don't think they're winning. They can fly down the field all they want, but they're going to have to recover an onside kick, and we're going to scoop this one up, which is going to seal it. I wasn't expecting us to win it all the first time we made the playoffs. I wasn't expecting us to win it all until we picked up a linebacker, but this was well deserved. We built a solid team. We were able to win in less than 25 years, and keeping Haynes King around instead of Cam Ward paid off. He was able to throw for 50 touchdowns, almost 4,000 yards, and he probably rushed for a good bit too, so I think we needed Xavier Restrepo more. Ashton Genty, of course, amazing. Luther Burden III, over 1,000 yards, 17 touchdowns out of Dante Wright, and our best defensive player, Jasheen Davis, with his 20 sacks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this different style video. If you want to see more like it, let me know down below in the comments, and check out some of my other rebuilds if you've made it this far.